One of the key things we do is the Green Business Alliance, and that's a cohort of businesses that sort of as a group declare a climate goal and then work as a cohort to achieve the goal. And so each business has its own emissions reduction goal that it sets for itself that they can choose to publicize or not, but the cohort as a group has a group goal. So what we do, that's a really deep dive with those businesses where we work in a coaching role, in a data tracking role, so we actually help them see where they've started and see where they need to go and how to get there. So that's a really sort of I was intimate. I mean, it's a lot of close relationships working with businesses over time to achieve a goal. That's kind of the heaviest lift in terms of climate impact and climate commitments.
You're listening to America's Healthiest City on Mike King Biz Radio Network on ESPN Richmond 106.1 and Choice 105.3.
Welcome to America's Healthiest City. I'm your host, Will Melton, and today we have Jacqui Bauer from the Community Climate Collaborative, C3 for short. We'll say that a few times. And today we're going to have a great conversation about sustainability and the environment and how businesses can get involved in that. But if you are new to the program and you're listening to this for the very first time, I encourage you to please visit americashealthiestcity.com to learn about our 10-year community partnership to make all of our VA the healthiest in America by 2033. You can check out our ideas board. You can leave your ideas. You can leave comments on others' ideas. This is all about building a belief system that we can go there and then working together to make sure that it happens. So without further ado, Jacqui, welcome to the show. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you. I have been working tirelessly for a year to try to get people to stop drinking from single-use plastic bottles of water. And it is a massive feat, but it is important and something that I believe in. And so I'm just excited to have this conversation.
Good. Yes, all about reducing waste, reducing impact on the environment. It's all tied together.
Well, I will start you out the way we start everybody, and that is your relationship to Richmond. Are you native? Did you come here? And what brought you if you are not?
I am a very recent transplant to Richmond. So I came from the Midwest and then spent the last 6 years in Arizona, which was way too hot for me and did not have enough water. And so we were looking to relocate, and my husband got a job with the National Science Foundation, which pointed us in the direction of Virginia. And then I found C3, and I really love Richmond. So it was an easy decision.
Now, is your husband, is there a job for NSF here in Richmond?
No, so he's partly remote.
Okay.
So he heads up to Alexandria on the train
nice.
Once a week. And so it works pretty well.
Great.
It's a little bit, it's not as convenient as we'd like, but it makes it's pretty doable.
Well, there's a lot of people that move to Richmond because of its convenience factor geographically. And so
Definitely.
I'd be curious to see that train that they build that goes a little bit faster.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I just love trains. So it would be amazing to see them invest more in our train system and get it moving a little faster.
So I want to cover your background, and kind of leading up to C3, and we'll say it one more time, the Community Climate Collaborative, so everybody knows what we're talking about when we say C3. I understand that another commonality that we have used to work in housing. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, sort of in relationship to sustainability.
Yeah.
So all these things are linked together, right? Health, sustainability, housing, affordability, all these things are just so deeply connected. So I spent 7 years as the sustainability coordinator for Bloomington, Indiana. So loved the job, absolutely loved it. Got to work with a really amazing boss and an amazing tiny little department. We were great. And worked on all aspects of sustainability, from waste reduction to transportation to energy efficiency, and all of that incorporating social equity, trying to figure out how all these things fit together. One of the things that emerged from that work was that rental housing tends to really get missed on a lot of sustainability initiatives. There are really complex incentive structures that affect rental properties. There's lots of reasons that they are complicated to address. But when I left the city, I took this whole project with me, focused entirely on building sustainability and efficiency in rental housing. So I spent 6 years working on that, trying to get a startup up and running. Startup was called Rent Lab. It was all about building transparency, building awareness around the efficiency features of rental housing and why that's so important for affordability, for stabilizing households that are affected by high energy burden, all of that stuff. It did not get off the ground. I really put everything I had into it. But I have a huge interest in housing, in building more housing, in increasing housing density. I actually love, one of the things I love about Richmond is that it has such an amazing core of density. So the housing is dense, the businesses are dense, living in a place that's so walkable, and getting better on bikeability. All of that is I'm just delighted about that in Richmond. I know there's a lot of work still to be done, but it's all of that, again, links together.
Well, we can talk all day about your background and education and everything, but I think our listeners would love to know your why. You were obviously passionate about this. What brought you to the sustainability space?
I think I've always been so motivated by having a social mission, trying to make the world a better place. And I've dabbled in lots of different things, but the thing I kept coming back to is that without a healthy, resilient environment, none of the other things really mean that much. That was my interpretation. So I really started to focus on environmental policy, environmental management, environmental justice, sort of pulling all of these aspects together. And there's also that history. As I was growing up, we spent so much time in the woods and on lakes and all these things. We both have that Michigan history. Mm-hmm. And I spent so much time interacting with the environment, and some of my earliest memories are of seeing an environment that I loved, seeing it change, seeing everything from a neighboring plot of land that used to be full of fireflies being cut down and a huge sort of mansion erected on it. And so, it's all of these things that kind of tie together and made me passionate about wanting to work that meant something to me and that felt like a positive impact on the world. So that's a long answer to a why.
Yeah, well,
I want to make the world a better place.
Yeah. Well, did you get your special coat along the way for tree huggers? I think.
Yeah.
I feel like they need to make special coats for folks like us.
They do. Yes, it's true. It's true. A little flag.
Yeah.
that you carry around.
So before we move into the next segment, you are listening to America's Healthiest City on ESPN Richmond 106.1, part of the Mike King Biz Media Network. You can catch us each week here on the network or on ESPNRichmond.com on Thursdays at 6 a.m. I know you wake up early, and I know you want to listen to our show. Today in the studio we have Jacqui Bauer, who is the Climate Services Manager from the Community Climate Collaborative, C3 for short. And we're talking about sustainability, and we're talking about sustainability in Richmond, and so I want to get into the conversation and go straight for the jugular. Businesses have a big impact on sustainability in our environment. We have some standout folks that I know you are talking to and bringing to the table for conversation. We got a lot to talk about here, so I'll let you kind of speak a little bit more to the background of the organization, what brought you to Richmond, kind of what your track record is up in Charlottesville, and
Absolutely.
Give us a little bit of background.
Yeah, sure. And so the big reason we're focusing on businesses in the commercial sector in Richmond is because that sector makes up something like 45% of Richmond's greenhouse gas emissions. So it has an outsized impact on the emissions coming out of this community. And so we really wanted to start our work in Richmond here. So C3 expanded from Charlottesville into Richmond just as of a few months ago. So we're very new to the community. We're definitely still in kind of info gathering, landscape research, trying to really understand what's happening here already, how we can complement and sort of enhance what's going on already rather than trying to duplicate and declare, what we're going to do in the community. So we've spent a lot of time in Charlottesville. wouldn't say perfecting, but really honing in our approach to working with businesses there. One of the key things we do is the Green Business Alliance, and that's a cohort of businesses that sort of as a group declare a climate goal and then work as a cohort to achieve the goal. And so each business has its own emissions reduction goal that it sets for itself that they can choose to publicize or not, but the cohort as a group has a group goal. So what we do, that's a really deep dive with those businesses where we work in a coaching role, in a data tracking role, so we actually help them see where they've started and see where they need to go and how to get there. So that's a really sort of I was intimate. I mean, it's a lot of close relationships working with businesses over time to achieve a goal. That's kind of the heaviest lift in terms of climate impact and climate commitments. We also do a broader sort of climate service program where we work with nonprofits to assess the energy use in their facilities, assess their emissions, and then help them figure out how to reduce those emissions. So the great thing about this is that all of this work brings down the utility costs. It brings down it often affects comfort. It often affects just general efficiency in the operation. So there's all these co-benefits of tracking your emissions and tracking your energy use. So, it's often, it doesn't necessarily have to be a hard sell to a business. These often are actions that benefit your bottom line. One of our, I just worked with my colleague Coles to finish the sort of first year assessment of one of our Green Business Alliance members had gone and they've dropped their emissions just with really simple stuff by about 30% in a year. So we were able to zero in on a facility that was using a huge amount of energy compared to their others, and we were able to give them some guidance on some really low-cost improvements. I mean, it's a no-brainer. It drops their energy bills. It's, all these things come together, and they can lend themselves to benefits that serve the community in many different ways, and they're good for the business branding, The business can talk about why these things are good and its commitment to doing good in the community.
So I have this belief that sustainability doesn't just help the environment, but it is profitable if you do it right. And as a marketer who works with companies to help them tell their stories, we decided last year to dive headfirst into working exclusively with sustainability companies, whether they're making sustainable goods and services or if they have these initiatives in place.
Oh, that's great.
And I'm convinced that profitability is on the other side of it. I've seen it work for other businesses. And you look at the consumer sentiment. 60% of consumers are looking for business. So 80% of consumers want businesses to do something about the environmental problem, but 60% will spend 10 to 20% more for goods and services that are sustainably made or have sustainability baked in. Mm-hmm. And so I'm fascinated by this. We actually implemented a website development and sustainability policy that dictates that we will build websites that reduce the amount of compute that's needed. And because we were thinking about this, like, how do we put our money where our mouth is? And lots of different businesses, we're all remote, we do all digital work, but all businesses have an impact to make. So I want to see if you could maybe share with our listeners some things that have actually happened in some of these businesses, and maybe some of the outcomes that you can report to, just anecdotally.
Oh, sure. I mean, some of the easiest things, there's two that I will go to. One is lighting. If you have any incandescent lights left, halogen lights, metal halide lights, those all have LED replacements at this point that will drop your lighting energy spend by 70 or 80% at least. So those lighting investments will pay for themselves within 2-3 years. The second thing is HVAC controls. So if your air conditioning or heating is running all the time, it is a huge waste of money, and it's a huge amount of most businesses' energy bills. So those are two things that often cost very little to do. The HVAC control sometimes is just a matter of programming the thermostat. So the Green Business Alliance member that I gave, the example that I gave earlier, some of that was just controls. So just trying to figure out why this one building was using so much and tweaking their controls so it's not the fans aren't running all the time, or the AC isn't set to 62 or whatever. So some of it is just sort of tweaking those things and refining those settings, and many businesses will see huge amounts of savings. There's more, there's equipment, equipment that has aged out is, once things are 15 to 20 years old, you really need to have a plan in place. It's really easy to wait for the thing to fail and then scramble to get that water heater replaced or that air handling unit replaced or whatever. But if you just have a plan, the criteria you want to consider for the replacement, you can be all set up to replace it with something that's a lot better than what you've got. So some of this is just thinking ahead. Some of it is just taking these really easy, low-cost steps. But pretty much everybody, I have to say, one of my favorite things, we effectively do these energy assessments in buildings, and it's a little like a scavenger hunt, right? You go into these buildings and you're sort of looking at all this stuff that usually runs in the background. Most people don't think about it at all, but you're sort of trying to see, okay, what kind of light is that? Where are those controls set? How old is this equipment? It can be this really kind of entertaining puzzle that you're trying to put together about how energy is being used and how we can kind of tweak it.
For about 7 years, I have been working with window film installers up and down the East Coast, and this invisible product that has very, very low market awareness does a tremendous job at reducing emissions in buildings. And our windows are one of the biggest areas for heat loss and gain, depending on the season. So I've been spending more time in this space than I realized, and it's just, I think we're all waking up finally to the reality.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about the 2024 Business of Climate event that you guys have coming up very soon. So tell us a little bit about that, where it's going to be.
Yeah. This is kind of our kickoff event in Richmond, focused on particularly businesses, but nonprofits too. So we're really trying to get anyone who's in a sort of commercial style building. It could be an office building, it could be a print shop, it could be an auto mechanics, a garage, whatever. So, but we're really trying to target locally headquartered businesses of all kinds to come to this event called the Business of Climate, Quirk Hotel, April 18th, 4 to 6 p.m. And we really want to talk about the role that businesses can play in meeting climate goals, but also why that's good for them, why it's good for their brand, it's good for their bottom line. It can be a brilliant way to sort of have an important impact in the community much farther than just their own operations. So we really want to, we've assembled this great panel of people who have experience in different aspects of this, and they're going to be talking about not just what it looks like for a business to get engaged in climate action and climate justice, but also how to get started. And I think that's really key, because sometimes you talk climate action, and it's a huge thing. Climate, it's like a global problem, but C3 is all about sort of taking that huge global incomprehensible problem and telling people this is what it looks like at a local level to address it. So this is sort of step one with C3, really trying to bring that to the businesses in Richmond, build on what's already happening here, and then figuring out together where we go from there.
You're listening to America's Healthiest City on ESPN Richmond 106.1, part of the Mike King Biz Media Network. If you miss our shows live in the morning, you can catch them on YouTube at America's Healthiest City, so please subscribe there. And you can follow us on LinkedIn or Instagram at America's Healthiest City to catch shorts of this show. Today we're in the studio with Jacqui Bauer from the Community Climate Collaborative. I have to read that every time, but C3 for short. We have a few minutes left here on the program, and I wanted to make sure that we mention your impact report that folks can go get and just understand a little bit better about how you work and what the outcomes are. Do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, so the impact report, it actually will still pop up on the website. Just if you go to the website, there will be a little window that pops up and suggests you look at our impact report. But that looks at, just for clarification, I mentioned our work in the corporate sustainability side of things. So we're focused on businesses and nonprofits in the commercial sector broadly, but we also have a great policy team, and they work at local level policy. I do think C3 has on occasion gotten involved in state, but local level has really been the focus. So the role of that team has really been to either evaluate policies that are already being proposed, sort of do the research, do the background, and either help tweak them, build advocacy for them, or maybe try to make sure they're not passed, or doing research, figuring out what policies we'd like to see passed, and really advocating for that and building the support in the community for those things. So, for example, in Charlottesville, the team just worked to advocate for electric buses as the transportation agency moves forward, rather than going to compressed natural gas, which at one point was the best technology we had, but those days are past. We are now moved into where an electric bus is really the better option. So those are the types of things we're really trying to bring to the local level, focus on the local level, and then build. I mean, it's so important. I think people forget what's happening in their own city councils or in their board of supervisors, and how important it is to sort of focus on those things. Those have such an amazing impact on things.
Well, these conversations are always too short, but we want to bring everybody to the conversation, so I appreciate you coming in. We do have about 2 minutes left, and I wanted to ask you if you could maybe do two things for us. One, share perhaps the name of somebody you've met in the community who's making a big difference, and then tell folks how they can reach out in the world.
Sure. To that person?
No. How they can reach you.
To us. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I mentioned I'm so new to Richmond, and I still feel like I'm kind of starry-eyed and deer in the headlights a little bit. I've been really impressed with so many people. I just met a guy on the way here that I was standing on the street corner and talking to him, and it's just so amazing to talk to these people. I will say Kelly Lemon, who owns Urban Hang Suite downtown, and who's been a really tireless business advocate in the community. I met her just in the last couple of weeks. She's wonderful. Andrew Green, who used to be the sustainability lead at Capital One. Those are both people. They're both going to be at the April 18th event, so that's why they're top of mind for me. But it was really been exciting to sort of meet those two people and just sort of see what the flavor of climate advocacy and community sort of impact and engagement can look like here. So as far as getting a hold of C3, we're at theclimatecollaborative.org. And we're on Instagram, we're on LinkedIn, and on Facebook. So people can track us down that way too. But certainly if there are people out there who are running a business, know of a business or a nonprofit that might be interested, please join us on April 18th. It's free, Quirk Hotel, 4 to 6 p.m., and we'd love to see you there.
Well, Kelly, you heard it. You are coming on my show now. I just saw her last night, and kudos to her. She picked up Richmond Water
Nice.
in her shop to provide a more sustainable option. So.
Oh, that's great.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I look forward to doing it again.
Likewise. Yeah, no, it's been great. Thanks for having me.
This was America's Healthiest City on ESPN Richmond 106.1. Please tune in next week, and check us out on socials. We're always here. We're always trying to make things better, but we need your help. So, americashealthiestcity.com. We're out.